I want to take this pause and find more ways to do some research, to speak more, to continue to build out a community that is very, very dedicated to healing. I never thought I was going to say that word when it came to leadership, but I can honestly tell you that through the work over the past 2 years, my own personal work and the work that I've done with leaders, I think healing is a very appropriate word. Now, before I step away, I just want to leave you with a few questions that have really been guiding my own reflections. And I hope they offer you some insight as you continue your own leadership journey. My first question is for you to really reflect on how your own emotional wounds show up in your leadership. That's a term, emotional wounds, that I have started to use instead of using the word trauma. And it comes from the research or the work of Gabor Mate. He wrote a book called The Myth of Normal. And one of the ways that he described trauma, and I say one of the ways, is an emotional wound. I used to think that work was a place for me to escape my past, for me to leave things behind, to sweep past hurts under the carpet. And if you haven't already figured this out, you can't do that. Your past is always, always going to follow you, and they truly shape how we lead. And you can run from them for a while, but ultimately it will catch up to you. And so I think part of the work in trauma-informed leadership is to really understand more deeply what this T word means and what it doesn't mean. So that's why I've chosen to, at times, use the word emotional wounds. I find it's a little bit more relatable, and we've all had them. You know, the thing with these emotional wounds and with trauma is there is not a scale. There's not a scale that points to what is and what isn't a trauma. There's so many factors that go into our life and how we develop. And so getting clear and real with yourself is a big piece of this leadership. It's going to impact how you make decisions, how you communicate with others, and it's going to impact your relationships, not only with your family and friends, but your relationships at work. It's going to impact how you lean into conflict, how you lean into different perspectives, your ability to take in that information and work with it. Our workplaces are much more complex. There's more uncertainty. And those two things are challenging to work with when you haven't truly understood what drives you, and actually maybe not drives you, what has influenced you and impacted your own adult development. What does it mean to create trauma-informed spaces in your workplace? This is the second area or thing that I'd like to leave you with. We have the responsibility as leaders to create environments where people feel safe enough. I'm not going to say fully safe because that's a term that is going to be very different for people. And yes, there is the notion of psychological safety. There's also the perspective of physiological safety. This is where your nervous system tells your body what feels safe and what doesn't. So psychological safety and physiological safety are two elements that I'd like you to think about as you continue to work with the people in your organizations to achieve your organization's vision and purpose. What steps can you take to make your team a place where people can grow, thrive, and yes, where they can heal? And my last question for you to reflect on and think about is how understanding trauma and emotional wounding can deepen your sense of purpose. Work is where so many of us find meaning and connection. You might be working on a new product that is going to revolutionize how something is done. Maybe you work in a service industry. Maybe you're at a nonprofit. Whatever it is that you're doing, whatever organization it is that you're working for, there's an opportunity to find meaning in what you do. When we just go to work and do tasks without meaning, it is not very fulfilling. And that does not make for an inspiring life, and it does not make for a lot of happiness. how may you more deeply understand your sense of purpose by understanding how trauma has impacted or shown up in your life? If you're anything like me, you might have run from this word for many, many decades, maybe thinking that it didn't really apply to you. That's where I was. And what I've come to truly understand is I was running from myself. I was running from things that I'd forgotten about. And frankly, I'd been running because I'd had so many incredible adaptive behaviors protect me until I lost sense of purpose.